say the line I said on stage 10 minutes ago. I was like, is this my passion? Are you supposed to like your passion 10% of the time? Because that's what it feels like sometimes. It's more than 10%, but it, you know, it's like 40%. It's like 40%. But then again, if this is like your job, you shouldn't always like your job. That's why it's tolerable. But yeah, comedy's good like less than half the time, certainly. It's good.
I think so.
All right.
Are you a fan of comedy?
I'm a fan of certain comedy. I'm a fan of those guys I mentioned. I would say I like local comedy over like national comedy. I don't listen to too many other guys, unless like Tony Baker, he's great, but I think like Brian Simpson is definitely the funniest guy in San Diego.
Big fan of comedy. I know all the comics. I listen to their specials and their podcasts. I overconsume comedy for sure. That's a problem. I'm trying to keep a watch on that. Like for every like set of someone else I listen to, I gotta listen to a set of my own. So like, I'm the comic because I want to be the #1 fan of me. You know.
You find it being around comedy so much kind of starts making you dislike comedy?
It depends. It depends on how the crowd's acting. And like, I mean, you know, when you host the open mic, you just see so many guys go up there and tell the most racist, shot comedy. I think gets me down a bit, especially when everyone does it one after each other. That to me kind of deflates the spirit. But I mean, we've been having a good scene lately, and there's a new crop of comics who are, bringing it up. So I'm happy with that.
When you start comedy and you have your taste in comedy, you just, you show up to these shows, and I guess up to this point you've only, like all the comedy you consumed was just people you liked and shows you liked, and so you almost kind of think like, oh, comedy is just what I like because that's the only time I spend watching. And then you just see some guy crushing, and like, I don't get anything of what he's talking about. I think everything he's saying is not funny. And the one frustrating thing I had to get over was like, okay, if they like this guy, who I feel like I have nothing in common with, how are they supposed to like me? And I think a lot of times I very much sabotage myself with that thought, but I've kind of gotten over it. It's like, hey, the audience, they know so little about comedy. If you do you well, and the guy who's like the opposite of you also does him well, they'll laugh at both. It really has to do with how much control you exert over them. And that was like mystifying me. It's like, how can you like both? It's like, okay, they can. Sometimes they just can, and it's weird.
It's great to have a good circle of friends and comedians who kind of on the same page. And that's where I think Peter Bandic, Dan Harumi, Sam Wiles, Dan Venti, I think those guys are really my go-to circle. And we don't even have to say too much, but they all get it. And they understand that we need to push each other to get to the next level. Dan Harumi is a big part of that. Peter Bandic is just one of those guys where you want to impress him with your jokes, Sam and, Dan Venti, they always put out content, so much content for their show. It's like, just trying to play keep up.
Yeah.
I do comedy. Our joke is I do enough comedy just so I can hang out with them and say I'm a comedian, that's it. Because, if you fall off, man, guys will leave you in the dust, So it's nice to have that kind of feeling that, people are pushing you together.
You gotta find a balance with the hang with the other comics. You don't want to be one of these comics who is just doing comedy because their friends are doing it. But I do think the best and most inspiring part about comedy is meeting the other comics who are, other smart, funny people. And like just going to the places where we just talk bits out, talk ideas out. And those are some of my favorite nights in comedy, and those also keep me going a lot too. So embracing that aspect is really good too. Yeah, you don't want to just be a hanger.
So much of my happiness comes from sitting on the porch at Prince Hookah. Just any way you could think freely. I think having like Prince Hooker those Fridays nights, which doesn't exist, Michael Castleberry. After that, we always have like a good comic talk, and to me that frees up any blockade that may be in my mind. So whenever you're able to go down these thoughts that normal people wouldn't understand, it helps loosen something where I'm able to think freely the next day. Like I had one with Schrader, Burner, Schrader's friend, and Tommy, and I felt blocked, and then right after the next day, I'm writing corny jokes again. Back on it, baby.
Do you ever get tired of performing? Only if it's bad. No, I don't get tired of it.
How do you keep the spark alive for comedy? What's
Writing new material. That's sadly what to me it's all about. Is do you have a new joke? Do you have a new way to write jokes? Do you have a new idea to, just something to say? The weeks I hate comedy the most are definitely the weeks where it's just like, I got nothing this week. I got nothing new. Everything in the book, my notebook is.
See, this is something I've been trying to turn into a joke. Like, I finally understand when girls say they don't feel pretty, even though they're beautiful. There's days when I don't feel funny, and people say, you're funny. But stop it. I'm hideous. But I guess, funny is so fleeting. You can have your A set and kill one night, next night bomb, so it's a love-hate relationship. I will say there's times when I hate it, when like contests. Gosh, why are you getting yourself into these things? Just go be an open micer. What's wrong with that? You want to get better.
Your jokes are never actually good. Because they'll always have the potential to bomb. Some nights you feel like you're so. That's one thing. Like even when I do really well now, I don't even feel that good about it because I know. Well, it's like I know I can do well here. In one type of room, but in this other type of room, I'm still probably the same mediocre comic I was when I started, and that's the most frustrating thing. It's to me the frustrating things, politics of like getting on shows and getting in clubs. That doesn't bum me out too much. Like it really is just how the audience reacts to you night to night. I have an incredible amount of resentment to the audience. That's one thing I have to get over. Some nights I really hate them. And it's like your job is supposed to make them laugh. It's like, no, I want to make my friends laugh. All right, we'll pretend this audience is your friends. All right, I can't do that. Some nights I can't.
Watch Salt Your Own Popcorn. It's really the only thing that I really wake up for